Most people think the Kawasaki Z900RS is just a Z900 wearing old clothes. I thought that too at first. Then I spent time actually comparing it, not just reading specs, and that opinion completely fell apart. What surprised me right away is how intentional this bike feels. Not nostalgic for the sake of nostalgia, but deliberate, almost stubbornly so. When I first looked at the Z900RS, I expected a softened Z900 with round headlights and a higher price tag. What I noticed instead was how different the personality is the moment you imagine riding it. This bike doesn't want to be rushed, and that's not a weakness. I kept asking myself one question: who is this bike really for? Because it's clearly not chasing lap times or TikTok wheelies. It's chasing something harder to define. The engine is where that difference starts to show. Yes, it's based on the Z900 platform, but the tuning tells a different story. When I compared torque delivery, what stood out was how early and smooth the power comes in. It doesn't slap you. It pulls you forward like it already knows where you're going. Most people miss this part. They see lower horsepower numbers and assume it's worse. But what I noticed is that the Z900RS gives you usable power more often, in real riding, in traffic, back roads, and imperfect conditions. I've ridden fast bikes that feel impressive for 10 minutes and tiring after 30. The Z900RS feels like the opposite. It's the bike you want to keep riding once the excitement fades. Another misconception is the weight. On paper, it doesn't look light, but balance matters more than numbers. What surprised me was how neutral the bike feels once it's moving. The wide bars help, but it's more than that. The chassis feels settled, like it's not fighting you or trying to prove anything. This is where I think Kawasaki made a smart choice. They didn't chase aggression, they chased confidence. Suspension setup plays a big role here. It's not plush like a cruiser, and it's not stiff like a supersport. It sits in this calm middle ground that works on imperfect roads. Most modern bikes feel like they're tuned for perfect asphalt that doesn't exist. The Z900RS feels tuned for reality. One thing I kept thinking about was how relaxed the riding position is without feeling lazy. Your back is upright, but not passive. Your knees are bent, but not cramped. It's comfortable without screaming comfort bike. And that balance changes how you ride. You're not hunched over the tank. You're not leaning back either. You're present. The design is obviously a huge part of the appeal, but I think people oversimplify it. They say it looks retro and stop there. But when I looked closer, what stood out was restraint. The tank shape, the paint depth, the minimal badging. Nothing is trying to steal attention. It feels confident enough to be quiet. That's rare now. Here's a mistake I see people make when judging the Z900RS. They compare it to bikes it was never meant to compete with. They put it against naked street fighters or retro-styled budget bikes and call it overpriced. But this bike isn't about value per horsepower, it's about feel per mile. When I compared it to cheaper retro options, the difference was refinement. Controls feel solid, throttle response feels deliberate. Nothing feels rushed or thin. That refinement adds up over time. It's the difference between liking a bike and trusting it. One small detail I appreciated was the instrumentation. Yes, it looks old school, but it works like a modern bike should. Clear, readable, and not overloaded. Most people don't realize how much distraction ruins riding. The Z900RS keeps your attention on the road, not the screen. Sound is another area where expectations can be misleading. It's not loud from the factory, and that's intentional. What surprised me is how good it sounds when you're riding, not revving. The intake growl and exhaust tone are balanced. You hear the engine working, not shouting. That makes long rides more enjoyable. You don't get fatigued by noise. You stay connected. I also thought about ownership. This is the kind of bike you keep, not because it's rare or extreme, because it fits into your life. It works on a quick coffee run, it works on a weekend ride, it even works when you're not in the mood to ride fast. That versatility is underrated. Another misconception is that retro bikes are about the past. I don't think that's true here. The Z900RS feels like a response to modern overload. Too much power, too much tech, too much pressure to ride a certain way. This bike quietly rejects all of that.
When I imagine riding it, I don't imagine proving anything. I imagine enjoying the road, and that's a different mindset. If there's one practical takeaway here, it's this. Don't judge the Z900RS by spec sheets or Instagram clips. Judge it by how often you'd actually want to ride it. Ask yourself if you want excitement or engagement, because they're not the same thing. I think Kawasaki understood something important with this bike. Progress doesn't always mean more. Sometimes it means better balance. The Z900RS isn't trying to be the fastest, loudest, or most advanced. It's trying to feel right. And honestly, that takes more confidence than chasing numbers. If I had to describe the Z900RS in one thought, it would be this. It's a modern motorcycle for riders who don't feel the need to explain themselves. And the more I think about it, the more I respect that.